So this is a follow-up video to a video I posted over a month ago about one corner. It actually turned out to be two corners in my shop that had been sinking. That was the main issue that turned into three separate issues that I'll all address in this video. I usually don't film stuff like this, but since I posted the video asking for help, I figured I'd follow it up with how I addressed it. The first thing I'm going to deal with was the water drainage, which wasn't part of the original problem, but on the other side of where both of those downspouts dead end into the ground, those corners of the garage were sinking. So unfortunately, with the way that this house is lined up, I didn't really have a lot of options for where to divert those downspouts, so I decided to go in front of the garage. Towards the back was going to go through pavers, and I didn't want it running next to the addition, which is the sunroom on that side of the house. Obviously, towards the front, I would have also had to dig up concrete going across the front of the garage, so I decided to go out towards the other side. If water backed up over there, it would just flood my garden, which wouldn't be that much of an issue. This process entailed breaking up about 16 inches of concrete and then digging a trench and running pipes that way. Once I had all the pipes from the house out, you can see there was a huge crack right in the top of the elbow joint that was in this pipe. This is right on the outside of the shop, which means every time it rained, water was running into the ground there instead of away from the house. Now, we've had 2 rains since I've done this. This is a work in progress. I kind of have a rudimentary catch basin at the end here. I wanted to make sure this would work before I solidified this plan, covered up my trenches and whatnot. But we had quite a couple substantial rains in the past few weeks, and this has kept water from going into the shop, as well as keeping it from flooding. This is usually what I would see. This was before I installed that catch basin. As far as water coming underneath, with larger rains, it would be quite a substantial amount. So once I had that water diverted to the other side, and like I said, now that I know that it works, I'll dig a bigger hole at the end for the catch basin. I'll fill it with rocks, but that will most likely be a springtime project. This side of the garage was easier to divert because it could just shoot right down the end of the garage. I didn't film how I fixed this one corner, I only filmed the other. But the other issue I had with water coming into the garage is going to be that pavement lip. Now, the best way to have fixed this is to either raise the garage floor to that level, which wasn't going to happen, or to dig up the driveway, which wasn't going to happen. So I kind of had to just think of a way to fix this. So that lip was severely uneven, and the weather stripping, as you could see on the side of the brick, wasn't installed very well. So I took that off, and I'm going to widen those pieces with some PVC molding, so I don't have to worry about it. Rotting. Part of the issue was with the person that installed this garage. You could see it, especially on this side. The nails they put into that wood blew out a lot of the bricks, and it was causing these major gaps. You could see in an earlier clip had to cut out and replace 2 of the bricks. They were so badly busted up. And then I just used a lot of glues and adhesives in this project. I'm not a fan of that sort of construction, but when you're working with other people's mistakes, sometimes that's the only way to deal with it. I knew these fixes weren't going to be permanent fixes, but they would last for quite a while. This is not my forever home, so I didn't want to throw a bunch of money into something like this. Once I had the sides of this a little more fleshed out, it was time to deal with the lip in the driveway. And that was one of the bigger pains in this project. The gap between the driveway and the door at some points was well over an inch. And the issue was it wasn't a straight laid asphalt. You could see there's quite a bit of undulation. So any sort of lip I put on the outside of the garage would cover certain parts of this, but not others. And that was basically what I decided to do. It was also a suggestion in the comments to make some sort of drip edge on the bottom of the garage door so that water couldn't actually penetrate under this lip. So what I had to go through was I marked a straight edge and I evened out this bit of asphalt. This was a very time-consuming project. If I never have to angle grind asphalt again, I will be quite happy. But it was basically just removing up to 1 inch of this material in certain spots, and other spots I didn't really have to remove any, but I wanted it to be as straight as possible so that I could then build up this and then cover it from the top side. So that's what I ended up with. It was a fairly straight line, which I was pretty happy with. So at this point, this project was starting to get quite expensive, so I'd already bought some molding for this that wasn't going to be tall enough because this lip was well over 2 inches in some spots. So what I decided to do is I bought a cheaper piece of pressure treated lumber. I'm going to start with that on the bottom. Like I said, every corner, every nook and cranny, I used adhesive to kind of help keep the water out. And then I just used a rotary hammer drill to attach this piece of pressure treated to the ground. So I countersink those holes so that these fasteners wouldn't stick up above the level, because I'm going to be putting PVC on top of this. That is what my original line looks like. And then, like I said, I already had this PVC. I checked to make sure the door was going to close. I'm trying to get as close as possible to the door, but still allowing it to close. And then I could go through and just add that piece of PVC on top of it. I did contemplate for a little bit of time making this lip just bigger so that the door closed on top of it. That would probably work as well, but I thought I might get into issues with the inside of the door because I'd have to have enough clearance for certain parts. So this was kind of the quick fix I came up with. Like I said, the permanent fix is going to be addressing the driveway. So that's still closed, and then I could go through and reattach. I rebought that plastic over time, or that vinyl over time starts to harden. And I could put that weather stripping on the longer piece of molding I have. I could attach that weather stripping on top of it. So that was kind of how I addressed that gap. From the inside of the garage, you could see a lot of daylight coming in. With that new piece of weather stripping, it completely stopped all of that. So now that I had that piece built out on the bottom, I just took another piece of PVC. I cut an angle on the top of it, kind of hoping that water would drip off of it, and I kept it below the molding of the door so it didn't look super awful. A lot of these fixes are not necessarily aesthetically pleasing, but they are fixes. And then I could attach another piece of weather stripping on top of that. Like I said, the gap between the door and the driveway is quite severe, so I had to build out some thickness with these pieces. Since it is PVC, it's also lightweight, which is nice. I didn't want to add a ton of weight to the bottom. So basically have two pieces with that angled cut on the top, and I'm going to glue and screw these onto the bottom, and then that piece of vinyl will completely cover that lip, as well extend a little bit beyond it. So hopefully water just can't even get into the crack between the door and the driveway. Once again, as I said, I used a lot of sealants on this. I kept switching them because this is winter, and while it's a mild winter, a lot of this stuff won't work below certain temperatures. So stuff I bought in the beginning of the project wouldn't work when I went to go use it. Situations like that, which is why I keep showing the products and then using them. So, like I said, a couple layers of caulk on everything, and then I just use some self-tapping metal screws to get everything to attach to the door. Like I said, I wouldn't necessarily call this an eyesore, but it isn't necessarily the nicest looking fix. That is basically what it looks like. I'm now only left with 2 small cracks in the corner, which I needed because this can't run edge to edge, otherwise it won't open. But so far it has rained twice and I've had no issues with water coming into the garage. So until that becomes a problem, I probably won't address it. One of the last things I did with the door was the weather stripping on the bottom was super old. I was able to take off the entire track to remove this weather stripping because it was stuck in there at some points. And then I bought a nicer replacement piece to put in there. I'll show installing this at the end of the video because I wanted to wait to fix the floor to do that. I also bought some backer rod. Where the mortar is on these bricks, there's quite large gaps. There's nothing I could do about that, so I stuck backer rod in there, and then I silicone caulk all of these edges. Like I said, I could not have used enough caulk or adhesive on this project. For fixing the floor, I settled on self-leveling compound. One of the reasons I use this product is because it specifically said interior, exterior, and the fact that it was also a wear surface. A lot of the products I looked at did not specifically state that they could be the final surface. In fact, a lot of them said you had to put something on top of them. So that's why I use this. They also recommend using their quick-crete bonding adhesive, which isn't sold in the stores next to this. But basically, read the instructions. This product got terrible reviews online. I was actually hesitant to use it, but like I said, it was one of the only ones I could find that specifically said it could be used as a wear surface. That's why I decided to use it. I had no issues with it at all. I actually really liked it, and it was one of the more cost-effective ones. I'm pointing out parts like how much water they tell you to use, how to prepare the surface, because I think a lot of those times issues like that are not necessarily addressed by certain DIYers. They blame the product, but it's not really the product. So to prepare the surface, I went through and I caulked all the corners. There wasn't really gaps here, but I didn't want to lose any of the material in the corners because I was kind of hoping to get away with 1 bucket's worth. Like I said, I already did the other side and it was 1 bucket's worth, so I was hoping to get the same on this side. You can see I'm filling a hole there. One of the reasons I decided on self-leveling compound was because it was going to be by far the cheapest option. Foam jacking and mud jacking were a lot of recommendations I got in the comments. Self-leveler was the highest, but that was second. But it was just going to cost a lot of money. I got a couple quotes on it, and I didn't know this, but I did a little bit of research. Those are also not permanent fixes. Foam is considered to last a little bit longer, but it still's only quoted as lasting 10 to 20 years. Like I keep saying, this is not my forever home. I think the issue with this was based in the fact that the water outside was draining too close to the house, diverting it. This problem should not get any worse. And like I said, I drilled a hole in the center to make sure that the material underneath of this was not 12 inches away. When I drilled that hole, I pretty much hit the ground fairly quickly. It's not like there was a 6-inch gap underneath the slab. So that is kind of why I decided to go with that. It's also a very small surface. So as you can see, we had a flood watch during this process. We had quite a bit of rain and none of it came into the garage, so I was pretty happy with that. This is the underlayment primer I got. As I keep saying, I did the other side of the garage probably a couple weeks ago at this point when it was a little bit warmer. This stuff is rated to about 60 degrees. I was pushing that limit with this, and they didn't have the quick rate in home and Lowe's when I got this, so they only had this. I like to keep with brands, but sometimes they make that so it's not necessary. You apply this primer. I etched the surface with an angle grinder just because this is really old concrete. They did not tell you have to do that, and in fact people recommended acid etching, but this product specifically said you do not have to do that. And then I just went through, I put on 2 coats of this. I also put on, before I did it, which they don't tell you how to do, this extra bonding adhesive, which you can apply and then pour the concrete right on top of it. One of the other reasons I went with this leveling compound was this problem was flagged in the inspection report, but as you'll see later in the video, it is not foundational. He specifically said it wasn't foundational, and you'll see I removed the tool rack that the original homeowner had put in the corner here, and there's no diagonal cracking whatsoever on the inside or the outside of the building. I also consulted a friend who's a realtor, and his recommendation was the quicker fix that's most likely not permanent, but as I found out, neither is the foam or the mud jacking. They'll most likely last longer than this, but if I wasn't convinced that the water issue was coming through that crack, which I'm now assuming is fixed, I probably would have approached this a little bit differently. I went back and forth on options for quite a long time, which is why this video is being uploaded well after a month from my first post. So as you can see, I mixed this up pretty simple. I put all the required amount of water in the bucket first and then slowly poured in the material. They tell you to mix it with a paddle mixer, which I did. I wonder if some people were having issues because they were mixing it by hand. You have to mix it for a solid 4 minutes. The material comes out kind of like pancake batter, and then as you can see, you just pour it out and it self-levels. At this point, I floated the edges so it was a little bit more of a seamless edge. And I was trying to convince myself not to use another bucket because this stuff isn't available at the Lowe's by me, so I had to drive into the city to get it, which isn't that huge of a deal. It's literally a 2-minute further drive than the Lowe's in Jersey. But this project, like I keep saying, had gotten quite expensive at this point. I haven't kept track of expenses, but I'm assuming with all of the fixes, the trench, the exterior molding on the garage, I'm at easily $500. So this was the next day, and you could see it was close to being as level as I wanted it, but not close enough. So I bit the bullet and bought another container. Ideally, I would have just had the two and poured them at the same time. Could not find a lot of information about how to address pouring a second batch after the first one was dry, but on a Reddit thread, someone said they talked to someone at the company and they just recommended waiting 24 hours and then applying the bonding adhesive as you did the first time around. Now this time around it has officially gotten too cold to use the first bonding adhesive I got, so I did happen to find the right stuff on Amazon, which can be used down to 50 degrees, and it is not that cold in the shop. So I ended up buying that even though I had enough of the other product. I wanted to make sure that the temperature was right for what it needed to be. And like I said, same process. I coated that one twice. I put that extra bonding adhesive that's not in the instructions on there, but I've used it in other projects. It works really well. And I mixed up my second batch. You can kind of see the consistency of what that should look like there. And then I just poured that one. This was actually on the morning of New Year's Eve. So I poured this, and another thing people were saying in the reviews for this was it set up too fast. I didn't have that issue. Usually I pour this at nighttime and let it set up overnight because it wasn't drying super quickly, which is fine. I didn't need it to. And same process, I just feathered it out to meet the cracks in the original slab there. And this really evened it out quite nicely. And I think this was a little less than a week ago, and I've already put stuff in this corner, and it obviously the color is a little bit different, but you almost can't even tell that there's a patch there. I was really happy with how it worked. I know some people won't agree with this fix, but the reasons why I did it this way, and this is the wall, you could see there's no cracking. I kind of explained in the video, and that's fine. When you post stuff on the internet, obviously people are going to have different opinions. You think someone's not going to have a different opinion, you're crazy. As long as people keep things respectful, I do not mind having conversations with people about how to do things. And then the last thing I did, which was arguably the biggest pain, was getting this weather stripping back in. I actually stopped. I couldn't get it past a certain point the first day, so I watched a couple YouTube videos thinking I was just doing it wrong, but basically that was how you do it. You lift up the door till you have enough clearance at the curve and slide it on. It's an easier job with 2 people, but I didn't have a helper at that particular time. And once that was in, you could see it was a really nice seal, and it's actually warmer in the shop now than it was last year, even though we're having a very mild winter, just because all that air is not coming in through the gap. To finish up the outside a little bit, and this, like I said, this one's I'm going to keep an eye on this. I might have to tweak some things. I found this product for sealing exterior surfaces. It smells quite awful, but I just put it in all the gaps, and then I had some leftover asphalt and kind of sprinkled that on top so that it would blend in a little bit more. I'm hoping that seals a lot of the cracks in the corner, as well as the crack where it meets the PVC.